Oh, hello, yes. Well, yes, indeed it is. It's Saturday, especially for you. I don't care. I'm on holiday. I haven't really noticed what the days are. I have to check. Anyway, I have this week been, on occasions, talking about George Orwell in 1984. Yeah, we're there, aren't we? God, ooh, it's just like INSOC, isn't it? Yeah, clocks are striking 13 all over the place, especially next to Victory Towers. Not that I'd know anything about it. Not that I'd know anything about juxtaposition either. But, well, it's often quoted, isn't it? The whole war is peace and up is down and all the rest of it. And people, especially on the right, do like to point at these things. But I'd like to introduce a much better slogan from the sorts of things that I was staring at yesterday, and I'd like to suggest that Dick is indeed head, right? Because the stuff that I was seeing yesterday just left me with the feeling that, yes, we probably are becoming a godforsaken country, mainly because of the utter low wattage of stuff that we get presented with from the British media. I will give you a few choice examples. We had, inevitably, there was the dreadfulness of a jury not convicting Ricky Jones, which just goes to show how dreadful it is that Lucy Connolly is still banged up. Yes, it's dreadful, isn't it? Yeah. If only she'd gone for a jury trial, which, well, she was advised not to, and she was advised to plead guilty, and all of those kind of things, and she was just generally advised. And she well, yes, she did suggest to a judge that was reviewing her case that she was badly advised, and the judge said, no, you weren't. It was very sensible. But that's just Lucy Connolly. I can't wait till she gets out, because I think it's going to be screamingly funny when we actually find out exactly what she's like. I think that's going to be a low wattage one, certainly. Anyway, Friar Calvin Robinson was very, very cross about this. Of course he was, because he's a man of God, and he doesn't want, for example, real truth and justice to provide. Oh no, perhaps that isn't a Christian thing. Anyway, Friar Calvin Robinson sits next to God. I'm sure he knows what he's talking about. He was very upset about it, as indeed were most of the commentators on the right. And you might say, well, okay, they're just the commentators on the right, and they're a bunch of nutters. And, well, I know Friar Calvin Robinson is, because he does tend to agree with an awful lot of people that don't really like brown people. Left that one hanging. I don't know, I always find that astounding with him. Oh, right, I presume we lean towards his white parents on that one, do we? Anyway, traditional English values that he's got, hatred of minorities being the primary one, and just a real burgeoning sense of indignity because things aren't exactly as he wants them to be. And you might say, well, surely more rational commentators on the right wouldn't do that. Well, yeah, they will, won't they? Because inevitably we had Allison Pearson chiming in with this. Yeah, apparently she feels sick. Good. That's a plus in my life, Alison. She's just coming out with all the stuff that she usually does. I don't know. I don't understand how somebody can get paid so much money and be so embittered. How much self-hatred do you have to pick up that level of salary from the Daily Telegraph for writing tosh every day and still be unhappy? It's a mystery to me, but she manages it, by God, yes. And you might say, well, okay, that's just like, the commentators on the right, because our politicians wouldn't do something like that. They're grounded in reality, aren't they? Well, no, not any of them, really. I mean, we had this yesterday from Robert Generick, who was suggesting it was time to sack activist judges. And if you read the piece, you discover that it's just people he's not very keen on. He thinks we should weed out people that seem to have political views. Okay then, let's do that. To what end exactly? Because I have a lot of political views. Does it mean that I can't do my job? Well, a lot of people do argue that I shouldn't be put in front of children if I have any form of political views at all. Whereas, of course, if I did agree with Calvin Robinson, Allison Pearson and Robert Generick, that would be perfectly acceptable in their world, because they never really think about actually joining those dots together. I'm sorry, I'm going to be quite rude about people's IQ levels today, and I don't know, it's just one of the things that was bugging me yesterday. Again, on our, glorious politicians from the recent past, we've had the inevitable Ian Duncan Smith, or just Ian Smith, because let's face it, Duncan is his middle name, so he's a man who's used to basically lying for status anyway, and yesterday he was in front of the gorgeous and pouting, Julia Hartley-Brewer, who's always right about everything, especially about two-tier justice, and especially about crime in London, even though she lives and works in London, and as far as I'm aware has never ever been a victim of crime in London. But I guess that's just a statistical anomaly. Anyway, he was arguing that benefits are too much. Now, you may recall that Ian Duncan Smith, or just Ian Smith as I really think we should call him, was a man who has spent his entire career insisting that we give people at the bottom less money, apropos of, well, presumably tax cuts for the rich, and he isn't going to stop now. It's still apparently, even though when he was in charge of it, it was generally considered that it was the introduction of universal credit was enormously botched and basically made enormously large numbers of people suffer. Apparently not enough. There he is, rewriting the past. And I give you, again, writing and getting paid a great deal by the Telegraph. We get David Frost, the man who didn't want himself to be negotiating Brexit because it was such a good idea. You get this. Britain is getting worse and the old politics offers no solutions. No matter what the establishment claims, the establishment, they're swines. The public can sense the country is at tipping point. So as a Conservative, I think we should just get rid of absolutely everything because I don't really like it anymore. Yes. Still, we must, have faith in the institutions, I would imagine that Lord Frost would say. Presumably the House of Lords, but maybe not that either, eh? Still, we could potentially, I suppose, think about, those old-time journalists that actually do their job, except, of course, well, we have to attack them, don't we? GB News decided, along with a lot of other people, to have a basic go at John Simpson, who is probably amongst the top 10 most respected journalists in the world. But never mind that, he had the temerity to say something rude about Israel just simply because they're definitely not engaged in war crimes in and around slaughtering massive numbers of people in what looks like a genocide. Isn't a thing, is it? No. And of course, perhaps inevitably, we have that voice of reason himself, a man I cannot understand why anyone would give this person a job. What exactly is the appeal? It's not his looks and it's not his intellect. So what exactly is it with with Mike? Is it a spurious belief by people that he represents every man? I don't really know. Again, another person that lives in and around London and certainly works there on a regular basis, but doesn't ever seem to have been affected by its crime, even though he claims that indeed it is a crime-ridden hellhole. Anyway, yesterday he was deciding he didn't like the Financial Times reporting of an economic story. Leave that one just hanging in the air in terms of why exactly it would be that the Financial Times would be in the pocket of a Labour government. And the answer is, well, like John Simpson and the rest of them, they're all activists, by which we mean, of course, they simply do things we don't like. And we've reached that age in our life, haven't we, Mike? Not me, but certainly you. We just don't really want to have anything different. It has to be your morning routine, and your eggs have to be done to be just the right amount of runniness for your toast to dip it in with your soldiers, eh? That has to be the case because you can no longer deal with the world as it actually is. And just as a last one, I do have to give you this, which is the glories of Britain First. A bunch of very, very hard lads who are prepared to take the hard decisions. But we had Paul Golding yesterday posting this up, which is getting upset at a bunch of teenagers dancing in the street. Yeah, that's threatening, isn't it? Imagine, right, if you went to Newham, went to London, right, and you saw some kids with their mates doing a kind of dance to a video on a phone. Yeah, that would be evil, wouldn't it? It's no wonder the country's going to the dogs when we can't even rely on Paul Golding to not feel threatened by just a bunch of kids being kids. It's astounding. Still, my God, I wouldn't want to be called Paul Golding. Can you imagine it? Imagine if you went to the park and there were some kids playing football. God, Jesus, he'd be lucky to escape with his life, wouldn't he? Anyway, leaving that aside, in terms of real politic, the good news yesterday was that Roger Hallum has finally been released from prison. He should never have been there in the first place, realistically, for what he did. Or if he should have done, it's very, 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 very unlikely that he should have been given originally 5 years. Yeah, two-tier policing and all that stuff. I don't think it's going to be very long before the government decides to arrest him again. Anyway, more power to him. I think it's going to be intriguing to see whether or not the new Jezza Your Party et al. Is going to sort of form and take some of the ideas that he was coming out with, because this year his stuff from prison has been really interesting in terms of real localized democratic decision making, and it would be nice to see some of that stuff being introduced properly into our local democracy. Or not, because of course it'll just mean then that the usual people, from the right-wing nutters to the right-wing nutters that are in the Conservative Party to the right-wing nutters that get paid a great deal to appear on our media screens, will scream blue murder that it needs to be made illegal. And then when people don't get the right prison sentence, they'll scream blue murder that the judges need to be banged up as well. Yeah. Because after all, you've got to have your soldiers at the right level so that you don't get any of your egg left over because it's too runny. It's too much of an extended metaphor. Do have a glorious Saturday if you can do, and if you can't, make a big fuss about it. Ring up Iron Mike in the morning and complain that the world isn't perfect enough for you. The grass isn't properly green and the sky just is the wrong shade of blue. Yeah, you'd need to get some fjord maker, I think, to get that one correct, if you can see the literary reference there. You can tell I've been teaching too much English this year. Do have a lovely one. Enjoy.
Especially East Dons, actually that's a bad plan. So I'm guessing you're a madman. My side been on shows like Ross Kemp and Gangland. We can turn your friends into hashtags. You can find your dogs in some trash bags. Catch them on the counter so they track back. I used to have a hammer in my backpack.